Good afternoon, everybody. It's great to be with you. And today we're going to be continuing our freedom series. And today we're going to be talking about forgiveness. If you tuned in yesterday, we talked about bitter root judgments. And this is a root of bitterness that has developed over the years where someone has hurt you in the past and you've placed a judgment on them and the need to deal with that. And a part of dealing with that, if you remember, it was the importance of forgiving that person who had wronged you. And I want to hone in on that topic today, the importance of forgiveness. I don't know if you have been hurt or betrayed or somebody has done something wrong to you, whether it's in the past or it's current issue now. And because they've wronged you, because they have hurt you, because they've betrayed you, you refuse to forgive them because you really feel that they deserve to be punished. You feel that justice is being served. They haven't apologized, and therefore holding that unforgiveness, feeling that anger is like they are getting what they deserve. And I would say that it's not punishing that person by you withholding forgiveness. It is only punishing you. And I believe that holding unforgiveness in your heart is like being entrapped. It's like being imprisoned. And the only way of you being set free is by having that constant state of forgiveness. Now remember, forgiveness is not something that comes easy. And it's not something that you always forget. But it's an act of the will. It's bringing that person before the Lord and saying, I forgive that person, even though they hurt me, even though I was betrayed. I forgive that person actively to the Lord, and you keep reminding yourself that that's been done between you and God. And the Bible is very clear on the teaching of forgiveness, and it really is a fundamental value to Christianity. And I would say this, one of the things that I've learned over the years is to walk in forgiveness, to forgive those who have wronged me. And if somebody hurts me, somebody does something horrible to me now, I walk in a constant state of forgiveness. And that way I can't get hurt or I can get hurt, but I let it go and I can walk in freedom because, I know that people are going to wrong me, people are going to hurt me, people are going to say bad things. But there are some real deeper issues, isn't there? There have been some times where perhaps you feel that you've been violated in some way by somebody, and that forgiving them, you really feel that it's not just, it's not right. And again, by withholding forgiveness, it's like you're punishing them, and you feel like justice hasn't been served. And until perhaps justice is served, or until you get an apology or whatever, you will not let go of it. And even if that person were to come and apologize to you, you still may hold on to that bitterness and refuse to forgive. Peter said to Jesus, he says, how many times do we have to forgive? 7 times? And Jesus said, no, I tell you, 70 times 7. What he wasn't saying is that you only have to give 490 times, which is 70 times 7. And then you can withhold forgiveness. What he was saying is this sort of the idea of perfection, 70 times 7. He's saying that you always have to forgive. And he teaches this parable. He talks about, tells a parable about a king who wanted his debt paid from his servant. And because the servant couldn't pay him, it was like 10,000 bags of gold. It's a lot of money. And because his servant couldn't pay him, he said, okay, I'm going to sell you and your family and all of your belongings in order for this debt to be paid. And this servant begged and pleaded with the king not to do it. And he took pity on him and he cancelled all of his debts. Now you'd think that servant would be so grateful, and I'm sure he was. But then when his servant, the servant's servant, went and called for a debt to be paid by one of his servants, the same thing happened. He asked him to pay for the debt, but he couldn't do it. And it says that he grabbed him round the neck ended up throwing him in jail. And even though that person pleaded and begged, just like he did with the king, he refused to forgive him. And some of the other servants got wind of this, and they went and told the king. And then the king was absolutely mad. And then he just demanded, he said, look, I've forgiven you, but yet you refuse to forgive others the same way in which I've forgiven you. And so then he handed him over to the prisoners or the tormentors until the debt was paid. And I think that's the crux of it in the Christian faith. If we remember, I just want you to remind yourself of all the things that you've done wrong in your life against the Lord. Remember, even just one commandment that we break before the Lord. There's many. I mean, I've done some horrendous things. And the Lord, in his mercy, because he went to the cross, he forgave me of my sin. And even now, when I mess up, he continues to forgive me. And why on earth would I accept forgiveness from Jesus and yet refuse to forgive somebody who has wronged me? Jesus said, if you don't forgive those who have wronged you, then I won't forgive you. And I think that's really it. I think if we recognize what we have been forgiven for and that constant forgiveness that the Lord brings to us when we come to him and confess our sin, then we will have that same grace upon others. And we will extend that hand of forgiveness to those who have wronged us. Because if the Lord can forgive me of all the stuff that I've done, and I wouldn't even be able to say some of the things that I've done, that I've hurt myself, hurt people around me, I've hurt God. And yet God in his mercy went to the cross for me, died for my sin, and continues to mediate for me, continues to be my high priest and forgive me each and every day. He is an amazing God, isn't he? So we need to forgive. And when you don't forgive, it is like being in prison. You end up punishing yourself. You get angry, you get bitter, you have all these negative emotions, and it can really affect you. I remember actually quite a few people that I've ministered to over the years where perhaps their brother or a member of their family has hurt them in the past, and they will not forgive. And every time you lead them to that place where you say, look, you have to forgive that person, you can see the anger, the frustration, and they're stuck. And it creates this sort of negative emotion, this really it's you will not receive the Lord's total blessing in your life unless you hand that over to the Lord, unless you forgive that person. Now, that's not to say that that's an easy process. Forgiving someone is not easy if they've hurt you, because I think we feel that we have to feel okay about it before we can forgive. Well, no, forgiveness, as I said before, is an act of the will. It's something that we actively do. We speak out and say, I forgive that person. And it might take time to heal, and that's that process that the Lord will begin to heal us as we actively speak that forgiveness out. And again, to exchange that that wanting justice, wanting punishment. Remember, the Lord says, vengeance is mine, not ours. For positive and loving attitude. Remember, the Lord said, bless those who curse you, pray for those who despitefully use you, do good to those who hate you. So even though somebody might have wronged you in the past, it's trying to understand that, look at what Jesus says, that they know not what they do. Even the people that strung him up on the cross, Father, forgive them, he said. It's exchanging that negative attitude towards a more positive and loving and graceful and merciful attitude towards others, and praying for that person and blessing them, and even saying to them in certain circumstances, I forgive you. And whenever someone wrongs you, just have that constant state of forgiveness. Just say, look, I forgive you because the Lord forgave me. And it will just free your life. You'll be totally free. I think we we go around just building up all this resentment, all of this bitterness, and taking all this and end up sort of hating everybody, and everybody's your enemy. And I think we really need to walk like Jesus walked, and just to forgive people on a regular basis. And it's not easy, but with the Lord's help, we can do it. So I've really ranted for quite a while, and I hope that's helpful. Anyway, may the Lord bless you.